Jinwoo's power isn't his own. His Shadow Monarch abilities go back millions of years, stretching even beyond his own universe, because it comes from godlike beings from other worlds. So today, I'm going to explain every god in Solo Leveling and how Jinwoo bodies all of them. First, let's start with the being who is the reason for Jinwoo's strength, the Shadow Monarch Ashborn. The video game-like system Jinwoo gains to level up after the double dungeon incident was due to this monarch believing that Jinwoo would level up and become a vessel for him. The system's directive was to prepare the new Shadow Monarch, and it allowed Jinwoo to go from negative Rizbozo to the man with the big black shadow. Ashborn even gave our boy the ability to raise a full shadow army whose numbers go up to the millions. But there is more to Ashborn than just his powers. In fact, there is a whole other world that exists beyond Earth and the Monster Gates, a world ravaged by war by the pure embodiments of light and darkness itself. This is the true origin point of the Solo Leveling universe, and it all starts with the Absolute Being. As the name suggests, the Absolute Being is basically God in Solo Leveling, making him the strongest individual in all of the universe. He's been here since the very beginning, and he created all the gods, humans, and planets. But he's not alone. There are also several other universes created by entities just as strong as him. They're called the Outer Gods, which we see Sung Soo Ho, Jinwoo's son, trained to fight in Solo Leveling Ragnarok. These guys are so powerful that even Sung Jinwoo himself can't take them down, and needs the help of his son to become his equal just so they stand a chance. But let's get back to the Absolute Being. He could create life from nothing, and at the beginning stages of the universe, only light and darkness existed, and so he created two separate entities to embody these attributes. Light emissaries who protected the world, and dark sovereigns who sought to destroy it, aka the monarchs and the rulers who the Absolute Being required utter obedience from. In fact, the tablet Jinwoo found in the double dungeon reflects this, as it says that one must worship the god, praise the god, and prove your piety since he was so powerful. However, despite being this holy entity, one that created everything from nothing, the Absolute Being was, in all honesty, a terrible person. You see, the monarchs and the rulers are complete opposites of each other, and so they could never coexist without conflict. This resulted in a great war between the two, slated to last for eternity. But like, this war went on for so long that humans literally created an entire civilization. These guys have some massive beef with each other, okay? But like, both sides believed they fought for a purpose. One side to protect and the other to destroy. But nope, it's eventually revealed that the Absolute Being couldn't care less about the monarchs and the rulers. In fact, the war was just entertainment for him, something to help him live through his boring, ethereal existence. Bro really just wanted to watch some Netflix while he controlled all of creation. So the rulers say, hell no, and they started a rebellion against the Absolute Being, and surprisingly, they actually killed God himself. However, there was one member of the rulers who stayed loyal to his creator, Ashborn. During this attack, he would brutally be attacked by his fellow rulers, and on the brink of death, he was granted the powers of the Shadow Monarch by the Absolute Being, essentially now making him the strongest entity in existence. Ashborn's defection to the monarchs made the tide of war tip on the side of the monarchs, resulting in the exact opposite scenario of what the rulers wanted, which was peace. However, Ashborn wouldn't stay buddy-buddy with the monarchs forever, as eventually they too began to fear his immense power, and so they betrayed him, which was a pretty bad move considering right after he kind of killed one of the monarchs, like, all by himself. But we'll get to him later. Honestly, I want you guys to put this into perspective. This man, Ashborn, was so strong, he eventually was betrayed by both the monarchs and rulers due to being scared of his powers, and then led a two-front war against both of them. There's a reason why his successor, Sung Jin Him, is so goated. He got it from this guy. Eventually, the rulers saw how powerful this dude was and decided to pull the simp card, pleading for Ashborn to join together with them again. But Ashbourne was overwhelmed with rage and anxiety that he instead went into hiding to rebuild his shadow armor. This would be the last time the two entities of light and dark would see the Shadow Monarch until he had been preceded by our GOAT. And without their strongest asset, the monarchs were easily defeated by the rulers and the war came to an end. That is, until the monarchs set their sight on the human world, which they decimated and destroyed to rebuild their armies. The rulers were too late to do anything. The world had already been burnt to the ground, but luckily for them, the plot exists. Yay, plot! Or rather, it's known as the Cup of Reincarnation in Solo Leveling, a divine object created by the absolute being that can rewind time. But this didn't matter. Every time they used it, the monarchs would still destroy everything regardless of which side won the war. And on top of all that, they learned that the Cup of Reincarnation wasn't infinite and that its power was starting to run out, meaning the humans, they were and so the rulers used their last resort. They would spawn gates in the human world, exposing mankind to magic. Mana would pass into the earth and would grant certain humans the powers they needed to fight back against the monarch's forces, becoming hunters. Okay, we've gone on long enough without actually talking about the gods of Solo Leveling, so let's quickly go over all of them right now. First, the guy who is already dead, Varan of the White Flames, a huge muscular demon who held dominion over Hell's army and, contrary to his name, was able to breathe lightning from his mouth. Now, as cool as this guy looks, his destiny is to forever lose to the Shadow Monarch, as he was originally killed by Ashbourne and then his clone was killed by a mere level 100 Sung Jinwoo thousands of years later. He's trash.
You're trash, Brock.
Up next, the Fang Monarch Rakan, who on the outside may appear to be a big buff dude, but in reality is actually a giant wolf. He held an intense bloodlust for his enemies, as he was the king of the beasts, and he holds insane physical strength and speed as you would expect from someone so physical. He was commonly seen partnered up with the Frost Monarch, an old blue elf and the king of the snowfolk, a cocky and condescending individual who believed himself to be cool and calculating. Just by snapping his fingers, he's able to put humans to sleep in seconds and is also a master of ice magic. Sung Jinwoo would fight these two monarchs together alongside a third, the Monarch of Plagues and Queen of the Insects, Quiersha, a tall, youthful-looking baddie with glowing red eyes and greenish-black armor. Like, I know she got hella disease and I'd probably die just by touching her, but come on, those eyes.
Can you shut the fuck up?
However, don't let those baddie aesthetics fool you. She's a bloodthirsty individual hell-bent on killing anyone that stands in her way. She's incredibly dangerous because she holds a deadly venom which can easily kill someone. And in a similar fashion how Jinwoo can reanimate a dead corpse, she can also reanimate a dead corpse as puppets. But of course, she got packed. Next up is another dead bozo, one of the first monarchs Jinwoo stumbled across, the Monarch of Beginning, the King of Giants, Legia. He was sealed away by the rulers during the previous war and was by no means an easy opponent. He was the hidden boss of the Tokyo S-rank dungeon, possessing incredible speed, strength, and of course, spiritual body manifestation. He had originally tried to manipulate Jinwoo into a truce, one that would only benefit him, but Sung Him Woo isn't that gullible, so he gave the monarch what he deserved, insta-killing him. Up next is the Iron Body Monarch Tarmac, king of the monstrous humanoids, which makes sense considering he's the most human-looking out of all the monarchs. And this dude is a flat-out racist, contrary to his name. This guy hates humans, believing our GOAT was unworthy of being the second Shadow Monarch simply because he was human. As his name suggests, he was a master of defense due to his metallic body and could also use powerful attacks like telepathy and spiritual body manifestation. Unlike the other bozo monarch, this guy had a bit of a brain, where Tarmac was the first to refuse an attack on the Shadow Monarch before the strongest one of them, the Dragon Monarch, arrived. When the Dragon Monarch finally invaded the human world, Tarmac went along with him and confronted Thomas Andre, the strongest hunter other than Jinwoo. However, in his arrogance, he failed to notice that Thomas had come prepared and was caught completely by surprise when Velion and Beru emerged from his shadow. Realizing that he fucked up and he fell into Thomas and Jinwoo's trap. Tarmac attempted to contact Antares, but was shocked to find out that Tusk was there too. Yeah, bro got packed instantly. Bro, Jinwoo didn't even lift a finger, bro. It was his minions who packed him up. This dude was trash. The next monarch is the king of the demon specters and transfiguration, Yogamund. And he is as much of a meme as his name suggests, as because I'm gonna be real, I forgot this dude even existed, bro. All he really did was assist the dragon monarch when he launched his final assault on the human world. Like, Jinwoo just had to use his conqueror's hockey to immobilize him. That's how fodder he was. He was shaking in his boots, bro. Like, he's so trash. He doesn't even get killed in the original timeline. Alright, but from the weakest monarch, we now move on to the strongest opponent Jinwoo ever faced, the dragon monarch Antares. Now, this guy is so powerful, he's considered the shadow monarch's equal, and it is still slightly stronger in terms of raw power. He's also the one monarch Jinwoo himself never defeated in the original timeline. This guy had a massive god complex, believing that he was the most superior being in all of existence, and was also the commander of the strongest army of all the monarchs, the Dragon Army. This army had monsters at the level of Kamish, an S-rank beast who murdered countless S-rank hunters and leveled the west coast of America to a point of destruction never seen before. But in front of Jinwoo's big black shadow energy, he fell just as quick. Now, let's talk about the light gods and the rulers. Like I explained earlier, the monarchs plan to invade the human world to replenish their armies so they can stand the chance against the rulers, and in order to understand the human world better, they decided to take on vessels, completely overriding the consciousness of the human they possessed. And the rulers decided to copy their homework as they did the exact same thing. However, their vessels work a bit differently. This is because there is a distinct juxtaposition between the rulers and the monarchs, besides their light and dark attributes, as the monarchs are organic beings while the rulers are spiritual, meaning they lack any sort of physical form. On the bright side, this means if their vessel dies, they're completely fine, but it prevents them from exerting their full power within the human world. If only there was some sort of way to constantly level up. Oh wait, there is, because unlike the other dumbass rulers, Ashbourne wasn't stupid, and alongside the architect, he created the system to directly counter this limitation, which is why Sung Jinwoo becomes so broken. The rulers didn't think, hey, we have super ubi magic, why don't we just create some sort of mechanism that allows our vessels to level up and use our full power? I don't know. But no, they capped the level of hunters the moment somebody awakened as one. If anything, their plan to give humans mana failed, and Sung Jinwoo had to come in and save their asses. This glazing of Jinwoo is on a different scale. Like, I don't think there is a single video where I'm not simping over this man. Like, even my little cousin the other day messaged me asking, why do you always talk about Jinwoo and his big black shadow?
Embarrassing!
Despite the limitations of their possession, the rulers still went ahead with their plan to select 7 vessels, who would end up becoming some of the strongest hunters in the entire world and a great asset in the fight against the monarch. So let's quickly go over them. The first is Jonas, the strongest hunter in Brazil that ranked 6th in the world. So yeah, this guy was killed off in an off-screen fight, so we really don't know much about him, besides the fact that he could use spiritual body manifestation and probably ruler's touch, a staple for all the vessels. But you want to know someone who we know even less about? That's Siddharth Bachchan. And no, he's not related to Amitabh Bachchan. Also, that's actually my first name, bro. He's the strongest hunter in India and ranked 4th worldwide, but we don't even have a design for this guy, so I can just put a face of me, you know. My name is Siddharth, it works out. I'm him. Jinwoo will notice me now, bro. But enough with the nobodies. Let's get into some ruler vessels who were actually important to the plot, like Go Gun Hee. He was the previous chairman of the Korean Hunters Association and would become a powerful ally for Jinwoo. Sadly, he would die in the fight with the Frost Monarch. But before he did, he showcased incredible power, being able to keep up and even dodge some of the Frost Monarch's attacks. Some people believe that his death was simply due to old age, and that if he was in his prime, he would have absolutely destroyed the Frost Monarch. Next up is Christopher Reed, another victim of being killed before we could see his true power. But not gonna lie, the Monarchs had to 3v1 1v1 him. That should say something about his power, where if it was a 1v1, he perhaps would have put up a bigger fight. However, Christopher Reed's death was a central component which leads the plot to Sung Jin-woo finding out about his father being alive and the world uniting to face the threat of the monarchs. As for Reed's powers, he was ranked 3rd in the world, and he is also the first guy we've talked about so far to showcase his ruler form, where he resembles a one-eyed monstrous entity with fire wrapped around him. If you can't tell, there is a pretty big trend with the ruler vessel hunters. They're some of the strongest hunters in the world, and the next two just so happen to be placed 2nd and 1st. Number 2 is Liu Zhejiang, China's strongest hunter. This guy is badass, as he can use the powers of the rulers, and on top of that, he's able to fire off explosive energy blasts with just the swing of his sword. He was a central component in several big monster incidents, including Jeju Island and the Japan crisis. He would also develop an uncanny interest in Jinwoo due to just how powerful he was, and the two would become somewhat acquaintances. And at number 1 is Thomas Andre, the strongest hunter in the world. This guy is just your typical big buff dude in an anime, but he isn't playing around. In fact, this guy was so strong, he sent Jinwoo flying with one punch. He's also able to pull objects towards himself, and according to Jinwoo, it's almost like a black hole. Thomas's spiritual body manifestation is also insanely cool, cladding himself in a golden armor with white flames emanating from it. But there is still one more vessel we haven't talked about, someone very close to Jinwoo, someone who he had believed to have been dead for 10 years. His father, Sung Il-hwan. Oh my, okay, I'm sick of this, bro. It's Hwan, H-W-A-N, not J-U-A-N. That's just like how you pronounce it. Like, how am I supposed to say it? I saw all the comments saying, oh, it's not what? Wait, Sung Jin-woo is from Mexico? I didn't know that. Nah, this is dumb. You know what? Use code ABD at GamerSubs for 10% off if you guys want to make fun of me. If you watched our video explaining this guy's full story, you know that he was one of the first humans the rulers made contact with and was tasked with killing the Shadow Monarch before he could fully grow into his own. As we know now that the Monarch just so happened to be the goat among goats. And once the rulers learned that he was fighting on their side, Jinwoo's dad would become another ally towards his son during the war. HWAN carries daggers just like his son, and his power is immense, making S-rank hunter Hwang Dong-soo look like a weak little baby. He would die protecting his son, keeping his morals of family above all else, and ensuring that Jinwoo could live a good life.
That's what I'm talking about.
But with all that being said, you're probably wondering how the ruler's story ends. Well, the rulers would come into play again during the battle between Jinwoo and the Dragon Monarch. Jinwoo and Antares would continue to fight, distorting space and time greatly with each strike. Jinwoo, despite his incredible strength, wasn't actually able to kill Antares. Instead, due to space-time distortion, it gave the rulers the ability to finally enter the human world, delivering the final blow to their greatest enemy and ending the war. Of course, Jinwoo did defeat Antares in the later timeline, but if you want to learn more about that, watch the video on screen. After the battle, the rulers would be indebted to Jinwoo, as none of this would have been possible without our Shadow Monarch, and so he would request for the Cup of Reincarnation as sort of a reward. Then, with that, he would turn back time to when gates didn't even exist and humans could live normal lives, while he alone would have to bear the burden of killing all the monarchs once again. The rulers accept his request, and Jinwoo would wage war in the monarch realm for 27 years. And upon his victory, the rulers would send a human emissary to Jinwoo, thanking him for all he has done, despite originally being their greatest traitor. Ashbourne was able to create a new Shadow Monarch who would easily become their greatest ally and integral piece of bringing about light to the entire universe. If you enjoyed this video, watch the other solo leveling videos on screen right now. And for the next few months, this will be the final solo leveling video. Maybe I'll talk about Slime and Rimuru next.